Hi, welcome back to Engineer Your Space. I'm Isabel. Today I'm really excited to share with you the beginning of my dining room makeover. Now, I've always wanted banquette seating, and this dining room has the perfect layout for it. So it was the beginning of the inspiration for the entire makeover. Now, to make my banquette, I needed a bench, but I just couldn't find one that was the right size. So I thought it would be fun to make one. And it actually turned out to be much easier than I thought to make. So I'm really excited to show you how I built it. When I moved from New York to Los Angeles, I left all my furniture behind. So I was pretty much starting from scratch here in the dining room. Now, even though I wanted to put in a banquette, I still needed a table and some chairs. And being on a budget, I decided to go with this really inexpensive table and chairs from IKEA. I gave the table a new look by staining the legs in a semi-transparent stain in a color called Pinto White. And I gave the chairs a little bit more personality by painting them the same blue as in my kitchen, which is called Sailboat. And I upholstered the seat with some 1-inch foam, batting, and some fun striped fabric. Now that I had my basic pieces, I could figure out how big I needed to make my banquette. And the first thing I needed to find was a bench that was going to work with this table, but I just couldn't find one that was exactly the right size, so I ended up designing and building my bench. I made it out of 3/4-inch MDF, and I had all the pieces cut at the hardware store. You can go to my website, engineeryourspace.com, and download a PDF that has all the dimensions that you need. And now I'm going to show you all the steps that I did to make my bench. I started by joining the top and the legs together, putting glue on the edge of the leg before joining them together with a corner clamp. Then I drilled pilot holes to prevent splitting, and I screwed the leg in place, sinking in the screw heads below the surface. Next, I screwed in place the back support, flush with the top and the legs. Now, I wanted to have extra support at the front, so I glued together 2 MDF pieces to make one thicker piece. And I used clamps to make sure that they bonded really well together. And then I wiped off the excess glue with a wet rag, much better than having to sand that later. I wanted the front support to be recessed by about 1 inch. So I marked 1 inch on a combination square, and I used that to mark the exact location on the sides of the legs. Then it was easy to slide the front piece exactly in the right spot after putting some glue on the top edge. And then I clamped it all in place. To know where to put in my screws into the front piece, I used a combination square to mark its location. And then I was really careful to avoid the screw that was already there. And for the top, I staggered the screws. To give a little more interest to the side of the bench, I used lattice to make some decorative molding. I marked the center and the top of where I want the top piece of molding to be, and I also marked the middle of the molding piece. That made it really easy to place it in the right spot. And I pre-nailed the small finishing nails to make it easier to hammer them in. To prep the bench for painting, I covered up all the screw heads with wood filler, waited for it to dry, and then I sanded it down. Now, you can easily make a sanding block by using a scrap piece of wood and stapling on some sandpaper. A lot cheaper than sanding sponges. And don't forget, you should always wear a mask when you're sanding. And for the edges, I like to prep them by brushing on some wood glue that I diluted with a little bit of water. I wait for that to dry and then sand it down and repeat a couple of times until the edges are nice and smooth. And what it's going to do is prevent the paint from getting sucked into the edges, and they'll look nice and smooth after they're painted. Then I primed the bench and then painted it with a couple of coats of paint, and voila! Here's the finished bench. I kept the front open because I find it more comfortable to be able to put your feet under the bench. And to make it more comfortable to sit on, I added a no-sew cushion that I made with 2-inch foam that I cut to fit the top of my bench. I used a bread knife, but you can also use an electric knife to cut the foam. I covered it with inexpensive canvas drop cloth, cut about 3.5 inches wider than the foam, and batting cut about 2 inches wider. And then I stapled the fabric to a 1/4-inch piece of plywood. For the corners, I cut off the excess batting and fabric and tucked in the fabric at the corner using a screwdriver to make a nice sharp crease. I covered up the staples with ribbon using peel and stick fabric tape, and I used 3M command strips to secure the cushion to the top of the bench to prevent it from sliding around. I love my bench, and it works perfectly with my table and chairs, and it's now the perfect spot to sit at in the dining room. Now, to complete my banquette, I needed a wall-mounted upholstered panel, which I'll show you how to make, along with the rest of my dining room transformation in upcoming episodes. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of those upcoming videos. And you can always go to my website, engineeryourspace.com, for more DIY ideas and tips. See you next time.